While we watch the current Lower Merrimack Street transformation, at the very same spot 79 years ago this week, the Great Flood created major devastation. On Thursday, March 12, 1936, the Merrimack River began rising, and it continued to hover above flood level for over a week, as the Journal is remembering today. This week marks the anniversary of one of the greatest natural disasters ever to hit New England. The largest flood in the history of the Merrimack Valley began on a rainy day in March 1936. Rain began to fall heavily on Thursday, March 12th, a steady rain that did not let up for 2 weeks. The rain, along with a stalled warm front and an above-average snowfall that year, began a chain of events that would end in the Merrimack River reaching never-before-seen water levels.
The disaster of 1936, the flood that really ravaged Haverhill, it was one of the worst things that I have ever seen in my lifetime. There were so many people that we knew lived along the river that they had to get out of their homes because it was just flooding everywhere.
A week later, it was obvious that what the area was experiencing was a disaster unlike any other.
I was a freshman in high school, and I can remember they let us out of school a little early because the water was rising all the time. And so what they had to do, because Merrimack Street was flooded and it kept coming up, they sandbagged each side of 125 to go over the bridge because the kids had to walk across the bridge to get home,
At that point, an official Haverhill log of all flood-related events was started.
The Haverhill flood of 1936, Thursday, March 12th, Merrimack rising, ice not broken up in the upper part of the river. Friday, March 13th, river still rising. Calls from upriver indicate flood condition reaches highest point in 40 years. Wednesday, March 18th, steady rains and warm weather in upper New Hampshire cause a new rise. Slower than the 12th and the 13th, but as great. Mayor again organizes emergency forces and flood alarm sounded. 5:10 p.m., 22 feet, previous known maximum, 1887 and still rising. 9:30 p.m., first logs through Groveland Bridge. 10:20 p.m., several families driven out by water in the Riverside area. Friday, March 20th, 12:30 a.m., 24.4 feet. Transformer on Merrimack Street shorted. Some lights are out. Washington Square completely covered. Water in Emerson Street.
The river would just come up to those, stores and, where Mitchell was. Well, it would come up way up there. And the people down in Riverside, they had to get out of their homes, They lost everything.
The water reached its peak around midnight on March 21st. I'm here at the Water Street Firehouse, where there's a marker up on the wall behind me denoting the highest point the river reached during the flood of '36. But now, looking out at the river beyond, it's hard to imagine that this parking lot was once underwater. As the water receded, the damage was revealed. The Haverhill Gazette reported on March 21st that the damage to Haverhill was estimated at around $1 million, which is $17 million adjusted for inflation today. The flood may be gone, but its legacy can be seen all along the Haverhill side of the river to this very day. I'm standing here next to the flood wall behind the buildings on Merrimack Street. You can see how tall this is, about 30 feet to be exact. Now, this wall did not exist back in 1936. It was built in 1937 as a direct result of the prior year's natural disaster.
The disaster of 1936, the flood that really ravaged Haverhill, it was one of the worst things that I have ever seen in my lifetime. My girlfriend, her mother and father's place got wet, and they had to leave. They couldn't stay there. And then it took quite a while for them to get back living the way they used to.
Big changes are taking place along the river, but don't forget, it can be unpredictable. Because of this year's record snowfall, meteorologists say that we could be in for a 100-year flood event. So let's hope for the best.